So Eric here from Talking with Famous People threw me in type jail back in the day for not being an INTJ. I think he had typed me as a STP of some sort. Eager to prove that I was an INTJ, I actually booked a session with him, and I think we got it all squared away that I think I was an INTJ. But I was vindicated, but it was a good, actually a good time meeting Eric. I think there were some misconceptions about him in the type community, but that leads me to my first question, which is, Eric, do you know your reputation?
Probably not. I don't really care, I guess.
That was literally my sub question was, do you care?
I mean, if you're going to be right exclusively, you're going to make some enemies.
I remember in our interview, or maybe it was a pre-discussion, you had said that I know I am the preeminent type master. It is me.
Yeah. It is I.
Okay. And self-appointed?
I mean, reality appointed.
Okay. Okay. And I don't think I've watched a lot of your videos. I don't think I've ever heard you say, how long have you, did you study it for a certain amount of time? Was it a hobby that turned obsession? Like, where did it come from?
You know, it emerged from YouTube, really. It's like I was making various philosophy style videos about the nature of truth or whatever that nobody watched except for me. Mostly just like notes for myself. I wasn't even trying to really make videos people could watch per se. And one time I made a video about, I just found out about this. You know, that MBTI stuff has got this, supposedly there's this cognitive function engine to it, you know?
Yeah.
I was reading about it on Socionics and shit.
Right.
So then I started, that video did a lot better. I thought, you know what, maybe people will watch my videos. I don't know. So I started making gradually more MBTI stuff, and I just started studying it accordingly. And I kept running into wrongnesses, is basically what happened. And it's easy to determine because they don't play out consistently across whatever their mechanics are, don't work out ultimately.
Okay, so then you were watching other people and then saying, okay, hold on, that's wrong. And then you started to like, okay, here's what I've determined is this is the real
reading
type.
than watching. More reading than watching. I read a bunch of Socionic stuff. Well, at first I read Socionic stuff because it seemed to be more correct, at least than MBTI, which didn't really stress the cognitive functions at all. But it had massive problems, which is it failed to distinguish between the kinds of distinctions it was making. It didn't have a model architecture to it. And there were a lot of other problems, you know. So ultimately, I was like, okay, well, this isn't right. So I tried to figure it out myself. And eventually, after a couple of false starts that I had to trash partway through because I was getting things wrong, eventually I got it right.
Yeah. Do you think there's also a problem with just understanding, like, it's weird to say, like, oh, I'm an LII?
Well, I understand why Socionics wants to reduce it to just 3 letters, because that's the minimum number of letters you can use. So I get that it's more efficient somehow.
It doesn't have, I feel like it doesn't have the same, it doesn't like, it's ENFP, ENTP, LII, ELE. It just doesn't, I don't know, something about it doesn't connect.
Everybody's accustomed to the MBTI terms. I use them, even though the J's and the P's are backwards. It doesn't matter. That's the names we have,
right?
That we know sort of intuitively. When I'm talking about I'm referring to ENFP, and we're not going to decouple those linkages just because Socionics is slightly more efficient, because it's also more confusing. It's like LIILE. What? No.
Yeah.
I have to figure it out every time. I have to go through my head. Okay, intuitive, logical, extrovert. I have to do it every time.
That was the hardest part. I read his whole book, and I was like, I like one aspect that I like about it is the affects, because you kind of talk about this person doesn't have the affect of an INFP, and that's kind of like a no-no professionally. It's like base type people on affect, but Socionics does it. How they walk, their gait, their gestures. I appreciate that in a way.
Well, those are physicalities, and I'm not saying that physicalities don't link. I'm saying they aren't good arguments to justify a conclusion.
Okay.
Because there's no mechanics behind it.
Okay. That's fair. So here's like my assessment of you, kind of going back to reputation. I would assess you as like you are the 4chan of the type community, which is to say that I don't think everything you say should be taken seriously. And I think that's a fair assessment that sometimes you are purposely stirring the pot just because it's, let's get some conversation going. I wouldn't take everything you say.
It's true that I don't necessarily do the other person's work for them, and I probably should. So in other words,
what do you mean?
If you're saying something stupid, I won't tell you what's correct. I'll just tell you why what you're saying is stupid.
Okay. So is there something that reoccurringly comes up where that, like, you just are constantly having to like talk about the same thing where like, this is a stupid thing people are saying? Eric needs to come in here.
I mean, the number one thing that people say that's stupid and wrong and fundamentally bullshit is that they can't be boxed by a type label, that they're too unique and individual, that I don't know their experience enough to really be able to say anything meaningful about them with any kind of typology language. But that's just not true. The fact that they're saying that is itself consistent with whatever I'm saying about them typologically.
So if they deny that they argue and debate as an ENTP or something, like very stereotypical, or what?
No, I mean, I don't like to argue and debate. That's the thing people mistake ENTPs as people who like to argue and debate. I don't like to be arguing and debating. I don't like it when people leave rhetorical trash around me. I'm not just an ENTP. I'm also a debate coach. I have a long experience of writing cases and determining which cases are sound, which ones hold water, and which ones don't. And MBTI, cognitive functions, whatever you want to call it, is making a case. It's saying we are making a case for this explanation at the expense of all other possible explanations of disagreement.
That's true. Okay, so what happens to people who deny that personality type exists in general, that there are boxes? What happens to those people?
They just continue to exist as though it doesn't exist.
For worse. Always for worse?
No. Only mapping types actually care. If you're not a mapping type, then it doesn't really matter to you. You're not going to get anything from it anyway.
What's a mapping type?
It's a type that's got, like the most mapping types are ENTP, INTP, ENFJ, and INFJ because they've got two communicative functions first. The communicative functions being FE, TI, NE, and NI. The intuitions and the TI-FE combo.
Okay.
So if you're really map heavy, and if you've got NI Dom like you do, then you're basically a mapping type. You're the next level of mapping type, which is you put map first, but you apply it in a specific frame. Whereas I put map first, but I only apply it in a mapping sense, which is why I don't really know or care about my reputation because I'm right.
That is so fast. Now, is this? I've never heard these labels. Is this this mapping label? What are the other types? Are these temperaments that you've created?
No. It's just an observation that people who are more communicative are more about the map, and people who are less communicative are more about the territory.
Wow. Okay. So what's the most territorial types then?
ESFP, ISFP, ISTJ, and ESTJ. Those four are the most territory oriented. So they're the least likely to care about typology. Another type that's very unlikely to care about typology or be meaningfully influenced at all by it is ESFJ because NI polar. I mean, typology is an NI thing, right? It's like what I'm doing is making a TI robust, but it's fundamentally an NI thing. It's a holistic truth about somebody that's meaningfully explaining them. But it's only powerful if it's also TI sound.
Right. I love TI, and I'm jealous of it. And I think even though there is there's an intuitive bias for type, but I feel like all the TI part of type really makes it just click quickly.
Right. Well,
explain it so easily.
The problem with Socionics is it's all TI and no NI.
Okay.
So, in other words, if you can create infinite dichotomies, that doesn't mean they're all functioning in the same capacity in the system. And that's where fundamentally Socionics fails. It doesn't draw those distinctions. It doesn't say, this is this kind of distinction, this is that kind of distinction. This is mechanical, this is descriptive. If you can't make those distinctions, then you can't actually definitively determine anybody's type. You've got to have a set of data that gradually builds up that proves these linkages that I've established in terms of the map. And in fact, the map gets validated over and over and over again. You see these relationships between capacity. So It's like if somebody's TI polar that means something else. It means they're an action type of some kind.
Okay. I feel like this is one of the main problems with, I guess I don't want to say problems, but there are those that are to this day creating new models using MBTI. And I feel like what they tend to do is just try to redefine what something is in their model.
Yeah.
Do you think that we've defined things?
You got it right. You don't got the basic core idea right.
Okay.
He just was an INFJ. So he wasn't that TI strong. And it's mostly NI, you know? It needed somebody to go through and TI it. And that's what I've done. And what Socionics attempted to do, but failed to do because they TI'd it without NIing it enough. You got to have both.
So where can we go with type? I mean, where do you see it going? Like, where will we apply it differently than it's ever been applied?
It's the meta frame, which is to say, it's the single group label that actually we can use that's not an assault on everybody. If we say it's gender or race or age or anything else, it's always an assault on everybody.
Sure.
Except typology, which actually tells me this is why you're stupid. Whoever you are, you know?
Oh, that's a good. Okay. So here's a question. Can you rank the 16 types?
No. They're all equally good.
Oh, they're all equally good. All right.
No, they are. They're all equally good, and they're all equally good, and they all have their own normative system. That's the thing that makes it so challenging. Is right. While I think they're stupid, they think I'm a worthless asshole.
Okay, I guess.
And we're both right. We're both right. That's the important thing to remember.
I guess. Okay, if I was refining the question, dialing it down more, it'd be like, personally, from host Eric's point of view, in your own personal life, can you rank the 16 types? Who you like versus who you hate?
I like INFJs best.
Oh, yeah, I think that's obvious why. So that would mean that what would be?
It's not a lie. What are you talking about?
No, I said that's obvious. No, I said obviously that's not a lie.
That's your girlfriend. You said that was an obvious lie.
No. No, that's your girlfriend.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
But it was true before her too. I liked INFJs best. There just weren't very many of them. I only had one in my life before I found MBTI and the MBTI community, in which case there's a lot of them come around my channel. But
why them specifically? What do they have that you don't that makes you compatible?
I appreciate their flavor of nuance, and they appreciate my flavor of lack of nuance.
Really? I feel like you are very nuanced in everything you talk about. You're very
okay, that's your FP poll we're talking. I'm not very socially nuanced.
Oh, I see.
Questions about the reputation and stuff, right? I'm not nuanced in my delivery.
No.
I'm what INFJ wishes they could be, and they're what I wish I could be.
That's beautiful. Okay.
But of course, each of us would like to keep what we already have and get the other person's thing as well. But we can't do that. So, you know.
Okay. Does she teach you things about yourself by observation?
I mean, not explicitly. That's the beautiful thing about INFJs. They're always comfortable letting you realize that you've learned something from them rather than making you realize that they're teaching you something, which is not how it is with me, right? It's like if somebody comes in and starts arguing with me, I'm just like, you need to shut the fuck up and listen. You know?
Okay. Do you think, okay, I just want to try and get one answer out of this because it's a funny question. And I think somebody could say, well, obviously hierarchically in society, there's types that are better, get ahead more, or more useful.
Okay. I mean, a second, I like INTPs a lot. I like INTJs a lot.
Okay.
Those are probably my three favorite types. The two NI DOMs and my other NETI, the introvert version.
Right.
I like ENFPs, but we don't end up ever getting close, really, because we're both too busy being the ENTP.
What does that mean? Being too busy being the ENTP?
Well, there's only room in one conversation for one ENTP at most, at most, and usually there's not even room for that.
Okay. What is your relationship with INTPs? What do you like about them?
I like that we can talk at the same speed, the same level, at the same complexity, without slowing down at all, and both of us completely understanding each other. In fact, jumping ahead so that we can skip over shit.
Nice. Okay. Do you have actually INTPs in your life?
At the moment, no, not really.
Okay. You've had some that you're referencing?
I have in the past. That's another kind of thing where it's like INTPs and ENTPs tend to get close and then drift apart.
Okay. Okay. I have really good working relationships with ENTPs. But I find that they will engage for 2 to 3 months and then they'll be like a year and then pick back up with the project. Like they just kind of, you can't hold them accountable to timelines to like get things done. But I always look at them as like, I want them on my team, even though I know that I'm not going to get a Q1, we're done with this project, let's move on.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the problem is you keep trying to make the ENTP think long term about it. If you don't tell them what project you're doing and just get them to go one thing at a time, you can get a lot of stuff done from an ENTP. Don't tell them they're beginning a big project. Just make them realize it after they've done a whole bunch of it.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, I need to really think about that. That's smart. Okay. So
it's that SE 8th and 7th that makes the INTP and the ENTP drift apart. It's because neither of us have the SE to follow through on keeping up with it.
Okay, so SE is your follow through? Yeah,
well, I mean, it's taking something from ideational realm and turning it into concrete. So it's like yesterday I said to Rachel, and this happens to me constantly, and probably every other ENTP and probably every other SE 8th type, which would also include ENFP, although maybe not as bad. But when I say I'm going to do something, the chances of me doing it go down dramatically.
Because you've said you're going to do it.
Yeah, if I'm the only person who's being the enforcer of that. So yesterday, I told Rachel, I'm probably not going to take a nap today. 5 minutes later, I went inside and took a nap.
Okay. So are ENTPs as a general archetype like fundamentally reliable?
Yeah, it sort of. I mean, the thing is, it's like I'm not somebody who's going to blow out an appointment.
Right.
It occasionally happens that I'll miss one. I'm reliable on that level, right? It's like if you get me to commit to something small, I'm reliable to follow through on it because then there's this extra person besides me who's making me do it, right? So it's like if I was planning to do an interview with myself at 9 or 10:30 or 11:30 or whatever time, then there's no way I would do it.
Okay. Because you're just committing to yourself, which you can blow yourself off. There's no
right. You have to know what you want to be able to concretize shit particularly well, in a way that's efficient at all anyway. And I don't really know what I want. So what I do want is to be my kind of action, which is to talk about things that I might do.
Okay. One of the questions I kind of asked it before, but I think I would like to go back into it, which is the future of type or its application. But you're saying it's the meta framework.
Yeah, it is. Because if you're going to have a proper meta framework, in my opinion, it should begin with, why am I telling you this and why aren't you listening to me? You can answer those two questions. If you can't answer those two questions, it's not a meta framework because you can't link everything back into it. The only reason typology qualifies the meta framework is because it starts at the right spot. Every reality is an expression of some individual expressing their being through time. And that's a correct understanding of reality itself. No reality exists except through any of us manifesting it independently of each other in what appears to be at least a shared physical space. So we've got both biological physical beings, and we've also got this metaphysical being of self that persists through time. In fact, we are the same across time. It's not like we wake up tomorrow and I'm like you and you're like me.
Right.
And that's the thing that people don't get is you have to start with a real definition of personality that says it's the parts of the self that don't change across your entire life. And people will say, well, every part of yourself changes. Well, no, that's not true. Not your
God, I hate that argument. So
yeah, I hate it too. I'm changing my shirt right now.
All right. What so I like your definition where it's parts of yourself that don't change over time, and then dumb people go, oh, well, when I was 6 and now I'm 60, I changed. Like, why? It's so lame of an argument.
Right. So the thing is, there are a lot of particularist factors that will cause some INTJs to express as different than other INTJs. For example, there is flexibility within a type. I like to use a species analogy, which is says, like, as human beings, I can make myself more muscular by working out. I can make myself have better endurance. I can quit smoking and go from only being able to run 2 blocks to being able to run 20 or something. But what I can't do is, no matter how much I go like this, I can't become a bird. So it's like INTJs, you might get some who are real muscly and some who are not so muscly, some who smoke and some who don't, but you're not going to get any that are birds.
So if I'm following this line of reasoning, I can try all the, ESFP things, but I can never be an ESFP. I can never look like one, even though I could emulate and.
Well, you might be able to fake looking like one. So ENFJs are good at faking looking like other types. And
Okay.
if they really want to be another type, if you're only testing them in terms of self-reporting kind of answers and or observations that you're making, rather than some kind of skills that has some kind of linkage, then they could fake you out. Because they probably understand the map pretty well, which is to say what you're looking for. So you got to find ways to make sure that you asking them things they can't fake you out on.
So one of my good ENTP friends, a business partner of mine, she was saying that ENFJs are the best social climbers. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Status climbers. They know where the strings are, who levers to pull, people to talk to, rooms to be in. Is that right?
Yeah, I say that's absolutely correct.
But the INFJ would never care about any of that, right?
Well, they will use it, but they're just, it's like, oh, good, another thing to make my soul feel more dead.
That's the sad INFJ. What would you give? What advice would you give yourself, younger self 20 years ago? If you could do it all over or do it differently?
I wouldn't listen to me.
But everyone should listen to you, right? I thought.
Well, my younger self wouldn't listen. That's for sure. Because the only advice I would have given him is quit drinking sooner.
Quit drinking. You don't drink anymore?
No, I quit drinking eight years ago, and that was basically when I started the YouTube channel. My life changed because I was a drunk before. I was a hardworking, regular guy drunk. Like, I was a debate coach. I ran a debate school and stuff, and I went and traveled like China to open up branches of this debate program.
Yeah.
Director of stuff like that. So I was working a lot, right? But once I quit drinking, then all of a sudden I was a much more difficult employee.
Oh, really?
I was a much more difficult employee.
When you got sober?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's so interesting. Is it because you just had unlimited energy now, or you spoke up, or you cared more?
Yeah, it's because I was willing to argue now. Because prior to that, everybody always had the winning argument, which was, well, you're a worthless drunk. Even though nobody ever used that argument, they had it and they could use it. So I never challenged it. In my mind, anyway, they had it. I don't know if they had it or not. I don't know how well I was covering it up. It doesn't really matter. It was killing my soul,
Yeah. Was there a specific moment that you're like, okay, I got to get sober?
Yeah, it was Christmas Day. I was drinking margaritas alone because my family didn't want to be near me at margaritas in Pasadena.
Okay.
This sucks so much ass.
And did you do a classic cold turkey, or did you do steps like?
I went to AA the next day.
Oh, wow.
The day after Christmas. And
do you drink on the way?
No.
Okay, so you did it. Okay.
Yeah. And that was my first day sober. And I actually figured that I kind of knew that this time was going to stick. I've been to AA before, but it hasn't stuck. Because this time I'd gone in thinking, Eric, it doesn't matter if you're right. You just have to do what they say.
That was tough.
Well, that's where all good growth moments are. It's like when you're forced to put away your way of doing things and embrace some other way of doing things for a little while. It's like that's where growth comes from.
Maybe a bong rip will help. You remember?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's all right.
Anyway, the point is, I'm talking about ESTJs anyway, so I don't know why I'm going through them all.
That's all right.
The thing is, ESTJs with NI polar, their problem is basically this: they've got all the details they need and no point.
and no point. Explain that's funny to me. I feel like I get it, but what do you mean no point?
Ask an ESTJ to explain anything.
Like why it is?
Yeah. And they will tell you a whole bunch of details and no point.
I think that's the problem with them being in executive positions. We do this because.
It's like I was talking to my dad. This is one of the rare instances where he did have a point about something like this. I was talking to him about whether World War II, the United States should have nuked Tokyo instead of the other two cities. If just nuking Tokyo would have ended World War II in the same amount of time as nuking the two other cities,
right?
And whether or not it was more deserved, because at least you'd be nuking the leadership. And my dad's point was, no, they shouldn't have killed the leaders because MacArthur used the shame of having the leaders alive to control the Japanese population thereafter. Now that's a good point, actually, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
But even so, you'll notice it didn't address either of my questions, really. which was would it have ended the war at the same time?
Right.
And also, would it have been more fair to kill the leadership? Neither of those points were addressed. I asked those two things, and he answered neither of them.
Yeah. It almost seems like he gave, okay, so this is the communication problem that I see.
And it's after a lot of details, too. I want to add that. It was after a whole lot of details that he provided me about the specifics of the situation. But in this instance, it is that. There is a mutual respect between us, but also a probably disinterest in hanging out very much.
Okay. That's cool. That can still work.
Yeah, that's fine. I respect him, and he has my gratitude and appreciation for being there for Rachel and stuff. So
okay. Before we go, any last words of wisdom for the community, ENTPs in general? Anything you want to say?
Try not to be as much of a fuck up as me.
And also remember to eat plenty of cheese, I believe.
Oh yeah, don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. You gotta do that.
That's always. It doesn't matter what kind of cheese. You've never specified.
But it doesn't matter.
Okay, that's good.
What kind of cheese you want?
I tried to live without you.